With the demise of the Executor, the armed forces of the Empire lost unified command, and the battle quickly turned into a senseless slaughter. Several more destroyers were lost before Benali gave the order to retreat. The captain of the Chimera, unable to bear the disgrace, took his own life, and I was forced to take command myself. We did everything within our power, and even more, but we never managed to regain the initiative from the rebels. Imperial forces were long expelled to the outskirts of the galaxy. Dear fellow Star Wars fans and experts in the lore, what do you think? Was this paragraph taken from an official Star Wars novel by Timothy Zahn or a piece of Grand Admiral Thrawn fanfiction? Would you believe me if I said both? I will explain how is that possible in a minute. First, welcome to the land far away, where we discuss culture from a certain point of view. Hollywood operates in mysterious ways. Nowadays, it's difficult to remember that Disney's purchase of Lucasfilm in 2012 was met with widespread acclaim and delight among the Star Wars fandom. The notion of a lengthy lineup of new, high-quality movies was enough to send fans quivering with excitement. When discussing the upcoming sequel trilogy, many anticipated a variation on the beloved Thrawn Trilogy. After all, why wouldn't Disney utilize an existing and cherished blueprint? However, 11 years later, it appears that we are finally getting just that with the release of Ahsoka. For better or worse. Anyway, this occurrence got me thinking again about a largely overlooked aspect of the Star Wars franchise: translation. The English-speaking world typically doesn't concern itself with the fact that different language versions of Star Wars exist concurrently across the globe, with the English version obviously being the original and point of reference. Does it matter though, since the art of translation is generally understood as faithfully recreating a text in a different language? Well, that's not always the case. This is where the Thrawn Trilogy comes into play. These books were among the over 40 novels translated into Russian by Yana Ashmarina, a prominent Russian translator. She gained fame, or rather infamy, for her excessively unrestrained renditions of fantasy and sci-fi literature. Her signature method involved introducing arbitrary insertions, emendations, and other textual changes. To say the least, this was an unusual choice for a professional translator working at the turn of the 21st century. In other words, when reading a Russian translation of Heir to the Empire, you're unknowingly reading a book co-authored by Zahn and Ashmarina. The differences between the original and the translation aren't huge, but they are significant enough to leave Russian Star Wars fans confused to this very day about what was and what wasn't Zahn's addition to the lore. If you're interested in an academic perspective on this issue, I have written a chapter that will be published in a book entitled Freedom of Expression Across Borders, set to be released later this year by the University of North Carolina Press. If not, in this video, I will present only a few examples of changes to the original Heir to the Empire introduced by Ashmarina. After all, YouTube is not the best platform for conducting translation comparisons. Many of Ashmarina's changes could be described as overwriting. By that, I mean that when translating into Russian, she not only aims to convey Zahn's ideas but also seeks to surpass him on every occasion. She writes more poetically, more humorously, and does more world building. Let's revisit the initial example. Zahn describes the finale of the Battle of Endor in this manner. With the Executor's leadership gone, the battle had quickly turned into a confused rout, with several other Star Destroyers being lost before the order to withdraw had finally been given. Pellaeon himself, taking command when the Chimera's former captain was killed, had done what he could to hold things together, but despite his best efforts, they had never regained the initiative against the rebels. Instead, they had been steadily pushed back, until they were here. Meanwhile, Ashmarina's version goes like this. With the demise of the Executor, the armed forces of the Empire lost unified command, and the battle quickly turned into a senseless slaughter. Several more destroyers were lost before Benali gave the order to retreat. The captain of the Chimera, unable to bear the disgrace, took his own life, and I was forced to take command myself. We did everything within our power, and even more, but we never managed to regain the initiative from the rebels. Imperial forces were long expelled to the outskirts of the galaxy. So, we are presented with an introduction of a commander named Benali, who is nowhere to be found in the Star Wars lore. Additionally, there's an extra detail provided to explain what happened to the previous captain of the Chimera. It's also worth noting that in the Russian version, we encounter a first-person narration from Pellaeon. What you can't see in this excerpt is that it's a part of a dialogue where he is explaining this to a younger officer. In Zahn's original version, this is a part of a third-person narration, and Pellaeon isn't talking to anyone. Speaking of Pellaeon, in a different section, we are provided with another biographical detail that exists only in the Russian translation. Let's compare the original version to the extended one. "Blast it, Rook," he snarled. "What do you think you're doing?" X. Sharmuta Potts. Pellaeon cursed nastily in his ancestor's tongue. "What the Sith, Rook?" he growled, this time in the universal galactic language. "Do you realize what you're doing?" The phrase, "blast it," is an old-fashioned, informal expression of anger that forms a well-established part of the Star Wars lexicon. On the other hand, "what the Sith" is a play on a popular Russian phrase, "what the devil," used to convey extreme confusion, surprise, or aggravation. Arguably, from a world-building standpoint, this substitution was ingenious albeit unwarranted. Furthermore, the phrase is repeated 5 separate times throughout the rendition, which helps normalize it in the reader's eyes as a common expression within the portrayed reality. As for the topic of insignificant biographical details with a world-building function, it is worth mentioning that Ashmarina seems to fixate on the planet Corellia and characters hailing from it. In her rendition, Corellians speak with an easily recognizable accent, have their own slang, are said to possess extraordinary hearing, and enter a fight with a signature Corellian battle cry. It is very telling that in the Russian version of the novel, various forms of the word Corellia appear 31 times, while in the original version, only 4 times, exclusively in names of spaceships. Returning to Pellaeon, I would argue that he and Grand Admiral Thrawn are the two characters reimagined the most in Ashmarina's translation. The two share a Holmes and Watson type of dynamic, which was Zahn's intention. The writer didn't aim to build his trilogy of books around a grotesquely evil villain but rather a cold, cunning, and extremely competent adversary whose genius demanded respect. Thrawn was a military commander who fought for the wrong side but wasn't inherently evil, although he could act ruthlessly if necessary. However, much less moral vagueness surrounds the character in the Russian version of the novel, where he is depicted as an unapologetic villain. Meanwhile, Captain Pellaeon, instead of being Thrawn's faithful protégé, is portrayed as a somewhat reluctant follower of the Grand Admiral, quick to criticize him albeit only behind his back. Here's an example. "You will now tell me," Sarbaoth said, gesturing them to low cushions, "how it was you defeated my attack." "Let me first explain our offer," Thrawn said, throwing a casual glance around the room before easing carefully down on one of the cushions. Probably, Pellaeon thought, the Grand Admiral was examining the bits of artwork scattered around. "I want to know how it was you defeated my attack," said the old man, inviting guests with gesture to sit down on doubtfully clean cushions. "Let me first explain our offer," Thrawn said, throwing a casual glance around the room before taking the offered seat. After that he suspiciously looked at the cushion. The Admiral got preoccupied with artwork again, Pellaeon thought with frustration. What can you possibly see through dust and webs? Back aboard Chimera he would wipe such dirt with the lowest-ranking cabin boy responsible for cleaning droids. Well, to each his own. Thrawn's appreciation for art is established in the first few pages of the novel, viewing it as a window into understanding his enemies and subsequently defeating them. In the original version, Pellaeon doesn't initially share his mentor's dedication to art but recognizes its usefulness for a tactician. However, in the Russian rendition, Pellaeon mocks Thrawn and regards his fascination as a nuisance. Furthermore, a reader of this version of the novel becomes aware of Thrawn's cruel treatment of his subordinates. This cruelty is foreign to the character's nature. He was strict and demanding, but not needlessly cruel. Hence we observe the kind of changes in characterization Ashmarina caused through amplification and a lack of respect for the spirit of the source text. When it comes to character reimagination, in the Russian translation, 3PO absolutely hates Lando, while in the original, his feelings toward him are far more restrained. Oh, could you even imagine 3PO being furious with someone? Well, he's one angry droid in Ashmarina's version. Lando? 3PO echoed, and there was no missing the disapproval in his voice. Programmed politeness or not, the droid had never really much cared for Lando. Lando? Said 3PO with clear disapproval in his voice. Programmed politeness or not, the droid had never really much cared for Lando. Actually, it's surprising that 3PO doesn't spit in rage whenever Lando's name is even mentioned. Many members of the Russian Star Wars fandom used to be quite critical of Ashmarina's renditions and her deviations from the original. This is understandable, especially given that the concept of story canon is vital for the integrity of the community. However, nowadays, more and more fans acknowledge that Ashmarina's translations actually read better and are more enjoyable than the later, more faithful renditions. I realize that it's akin to saying a cover song is better than the original, but sometimes that's true. Ashmarina does like to play with language. She coins new idioms and phrases, like the aforementioned, "What the Sith," but also, to stand out like a Wookiee in a desert, "Get the nozzles going, whip one's nozzles." However, some of her changes are somewhat cringe. For example, in her version of the novel, at one point Han Solo almost calls someone a dick. He is cut short, mid-word, but it's clear what he's trying to say. Meanwhile, as you can imagine, there's not even a hint of profanity in Zahn's version. Anyway, I'm not here to judge. Ashmarina's translations fascinate me from an academic standpoint, although I understand that they are highly controversial in the eyes of both theorists and practitioners of the art of translation, as well as regular fans who simply want to read a book. Regardless of which category you belong to, I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment, and we can engage in a discussion. Also, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Until next time.